Okay, I'm hoping everyone can hear me okay. Like I've said, we're running a little later than our normally planned session of Website Wednesday. So just a quick recap, what is Website Wednesday all about? It is essentially, I started it back when I first joined the web industry a good few years ago now. And it's essentially a way in which we share tips, tricks, and resources from across the web world, and usually go on throughout the entire day. And that was back a good sort of 5 years ago now when I first sort of joined the web sector, if not even longer. Yes, that's basically how it all started. However, given today how we now have access to things like live video, things like Facebook Live, Twitter Live, being live on LinkedIn and so on and so forth, I thought, you know what, let's take it to a whole new level and let's make it more about video. So that's the whole purpose of Website Wednesday. It runs usually 11:30, between 11:30 and 12 on a Wednesday, and it's just literally a case of sharing some contents and bits and tips, something that you should be trying in your own business, some things you should be looking at in your own business or could look at in your own business, and just trying various different bits and pieces like that. So last week we looked at the importance of reliable website hosting. If you missed it, make sure you click on the video tab to the left to get a recap on what that was. I'm hoping this is actually recording on Facebook Live. I can see on my top chunk there I do have it saying live, and we're trying it with Zoom, so we're sort of seeing how it all works out. So that was last week, as it's really important for business owners to get into the mindset of getting the right website hosting package for their own business. So do have a look at that video, and say it's on the left hand side, and also click the like button on our Facebook page when you get 5 minutes. That'd be great. Thank you. So let's dive into this week's session. This week we're focusing on websites and content and their overall importance. Without content, you're kind of, you've got a bunch of pages that aren't really doing anything for your business, aren't anything for your website, and just overall aren't achieving anything that you want them to achieve. So let's strip back everything we know about a website. So the marketing buzzwords, the technical aspects, the inbound marketing that comes that we hear so much about, social media, all these lovely channels that essentially drive traffic to your website. Without any of that, without any form of content on your website, your pages are effectively just a bound of pages that aren't doing anything for your business. They're essentially meaningless. So without text, without imagery, you don't really have a website as such. So what is this thing called content? What do we mean when we say the word content? And we're effectively referring to things like text, imagery, video, animation, and in some degree audio, any kind of text or file that is displayed on your website in a digital format could constitute as being countable as content. So when it comes to doing your own website, you need to be sitting down and working out what content do you want to provide for your audience base. Do you want to provide things like imagery? Do you want to provide text? How much text do you need to provide? And do you want to show them videos? Remember the whole notion of an image is worth 1,000 words. Well, how many words does a video bring to the party? These kinds of things as well. Without content, your website is essentially a series of empty pages without any purpose. And I think they're just floating around in the ether, not really doing anything, not really developing anything, and not doing much for you. Just quickly before I go on any further, if you do have any questions about what we're talking about today with regards to websites or content, pop them in the comments below. I will see them, and I'll read them out at the end and answer them as best I can. So do leave a comment or two in the comments box below. So who is responsible for putting together content? Now, a website can be anywhere between 6 and 7 pages. It can sometimes be longer. So you may have a website that has nearly 30 or 40 pages long. And if you imagine that sort of scale, that's a lot of content that you have got to start writing on you've got to start writing it. And that's going to take a long time for you to do. So who is responsible for that in a typical client agency kind of setup? From our angle, it's normally falls to the client. So if the client comes to us with some content already there, then we can use that to start building a website and start using it to create some kind of design around that. That said, we can also do it whereby, if they haven't got any content, that's fine. We can try and extrapolate as much of that information as we can from the client to find out what it is that they are trying to say or they're trying to talk about within their content. So we can sit down with you and extrapolate that information from you. Usually some agencies will charge additional fees for this kind of service. And you would be advised before you proceed any further that if you are using our content services, there will be additional fees involved. But essentially, the two of you need to work together to bring the information to the agency, or the agency needs to work with you to have the content already, to get the content out of you, so you can build a website from there, or design a website at least from there. So why is content so important? You know, at the end of the day, if we didn't have content on our websites, would we read them? Would we find them interesting? It would be kind of like going into a magazine shop, picking up a magazine, and it being filled with nothing. Just a series of blank pages. Does not sound at all interesting, does not sound exciting, it just sounds quite plain, quite boring. So why is content so important? It tells us about you, your business, your story, and more importantly, it feeds your customers, your leads, your potential customers, ever-growing hunger for knowledge and understanding. They want to understand you. They want to know how you're going to address their problems. Let's think about it from their angle. They don't really necessarily want to know all the fluff and the bits and pieces that got you to where you are. Yes, that's important, but they want to know, how are you going to solve my problem? You know, at the end of the day, once you've moved out all the cake and all the watermelon, once you get rid of all of that, what is it that you're going to help them solve? So if their problem is not getting enough customers, their problem is they are not achieving their profit margin that year, their problem is they're not having enough sales. Whatever the problem is, how are you going to help them with that? As I mentioned before, images speak 1,000 words, so do use plenty of them. However, when using imagery, there are certain things that you need to ensure that you put into them. The main one is being ensuring that your alt tags, those are within the actual code, are filled with some kind of information about that image, and make sure that image is relevant to your article. So it's pointing to an article about, let's say, watermelons, and then you've got a picture of chocolates, unless you're doing something about chocolate and watermelons together. So you need to think about obviously the images that you're using and their relevance to the overall kind of page and article. Next point to think about is, obviously with content, it helps to get your website ranked on Google. Google loves fresh, original, different content. I mean, there are literally millions of websites out there. I think last week we looked at the figures. There was over 2 billion websites that are served, and by the time you finish watching this video, thousands more will have been launched. So you've got to try and get your website content to be different to that of the goodness how many other millions that are out there. That said, Google knows when you have been duplicating content from other sites, and this is not necessarily to say you're copying, it's essentially you're duplicating what they've done. So if you're going onto the website and you're taking chunks of their content and then just pasting it onto your site, that's a recipe to get your site pretty much marked down. So when you're writing your content, make sure it's genuine, making sure it's original, and making sure it's your own words will all go a long way. The next reason why content is important is it can help, and it does increase conversions. Now, that's not a conversion from a visitor to a sale. It may convert a visitor to a lead. In some aspects, if you're an e-commerce store, certainly the description of your product, especially if you've got it bang on the money, will lead to some kind of sale or conversion. But obviously you need to make sure that the description and the information is there for the customer to go, do you know what, I've heard enough, I've seen enough, I get the idea of the company, it looks trustworthy, let's click buy. So that's one of the things that I'm going to say straight away is your content can help increase conversions from the visitor to the lead or visitor to a customer, depending on what stage that customer is at the buying stage, at the buying kind of stages. Let's think about video. How many words can a video speak? Now, by the time I finish doing this video, I could have put all this into a blog post, but I don't think many of you would have read it. Whereas with the video, it's there in front of you. You can see it. You can watch it at your leisure. Whereas with the blog post, you'll be there for quite a while reading all the bits and pieces that I'm talking about. When using video, ensure that you do include a written version of the person. This will not only help increase your video's performance on the search engines. Let's think about this for a second. You've got a nice, beautiful video, all well edited, well presented, and then the next one you've got is the actual script, if you will, of what you were talking about, word for word, what the person is talking about, and that's only going to serve to rank that particular web page higher in the Google search engines, depending on what keywords you've chosen, and so on and so forth. how long should a piece of content be? Now, this is kind of asking how long is a piece of string. Typically, Google recommends, but is no sort of saying this is how it has to be. But Google recommends good quality content between 300 and 1200 words per page. So that is the equivalent of between 1 and 4 sides of A4. Yes, it's a lot of content, a lot of words. So I would advise that you mix it a bit, throw in some imagery, break it up a bit. Do include your keywords, but don't keyword stuff. So many moons ago, if you wanted to rank for PC sales, for instance, you would write a beautiful article around PC sales, and in there you would slam in PC sale, PC sale, PC sale over and over, essentially stuffing your article with these keywords. Unfortunately, today, Google has got a bit more wise to these kinds of tactics and actually now ranks website pages lower that are using this kind of tactic. So ensure that you do have some keywords within your articles, but don't stuff them with it. Again, I mentioned before, images should have the alt text field as well. So if you are using imagery, do make sure that your developers or you yourself are including relatable alternative keywords into your article or page. So once you've built your website, you've built your pages, and you've launched it, traffic's been great for the past 6 months, and then all of a sudden you just notice your traffic just dive bombed. What's going on here? Why has that happened? There could be various reasons, a bit beyond the scope of this actual video, but essentially, if you're not using, or if you're not updating your website regularly enough, then essentially Google gets fed up of reading the same news story, the same articles day in, day out. You're essentially saying to Google, look, our content isn't refreshed. Nothing fresh here for you to read, therefore move on to the next slide. So spend some time setting up a blog. So this blog could be on things like the latest, I don't know, so for example, the latest product you've launched. It could be about something such as, a change in your industry. For instance, we wrote when the lockdown happened that we were having to lock the studio down, but then we continuously fed that particular category with more content. So if we were then to reopen, if we were to launch a COVID-19 assistance pack or whatever we decided to do, then it would be easy for people to find, and more importantly, easy for people to start ranking that particular article in their algorithm. So that's the next part of it, is obviously start blogging, blog regularly. But how often should we be writing content? Is it every day? Is it every week? I think when you're first starting out, it's really easy to sit there and blog for 30 days every day without a problem. I know when I first started out doing what I'm doing, I literally did that same thing. I blogged every day, day in, day out for I think an entire year. The end result, I got a lot of traffic to the site. I got a lot of conversions. I had leads, yes, but did I get the sales? I did. I did get a few sales from it, but the amount of work required to achieve those sales compared to another method of the strategy, it was intensive. There was a lot of work required to keep the website updated, to keep the content fresh, and to generate leads and eventually sales. Blogging needs to be done regularly. It needs to be done consistently, but it also needs to be done when you can dedicate the time to do it. Don't think that writing an article is going to take you an hour. It won't. It will take you between 1 to 3, maybe even 4 hours to write a fully fledged blog piece. So that is to write it, proofread it, check it for errors, reread it again, maybe even get someone else to reread it as well, get their take on it, pop some nice images in there, really take the time to get that blog post looking the part, and then hitting publish. If you think that's going to take you 4 hours a day to do that, unless you've got a dedicated team, your afternoon is basically taken up with just blogging. So blog regularly, but put it into your marketing strategy as one of those things that you're going to do once a week, and just build on it from there. Start off slowly, and as your team grows, you can dedicate more time to blogging and generating fresh and usable content. Blogging is great also because you then become the authority within your sector. So for us, when I started blogging, it was literally about us becoming the authority within the web industry, showing that yes, we knew about latest trends, we knew about the power of blogging, we knew about the power of marketing, and to get people to encourage people to use these things, notice us as an authority in those sort of sectors. Remember that your website is never finished. It is never a completed piece of work. So once you've launched it, great. Well, you're now 50% of the way there. The next port of call is getting traffic. After that, it's generating visitors. After that, it's generating customers. After that, it's putting more articles on there. It's a continuous cycle of adding more content, building value, and building a relationship and a rapport with your ideal customer. So keep updating the content, adding new industry events, adding world events, and keep your website updated and fresh as much as you possibly can. So a lot of you may be thinking, well, what about the social networks? They don't produce fresh content. They don't need to. As a social network goes, you are providing them with that content. How many times do you post on Facebook? How many times do you post on Twitter? How many times do you launch a video on Instagram? At the end of the day, you're providing that social network with the content. Yes, they're their own business pages. So if it's on Facebook, they've got their own page, and Twitter's got their own profile. They don't need to be writing so much content to ensure that their website, facebook.com, ranks higher than any others, because at the end of the day, you're providing that content, keeping their site nicely updated every single day of the week. Which brings us on to our next question. If you've got 5 different sort of social channels open to you, which one do you post on first? You post the one which has got where your demographic is. It's pointless posting on 5 different channels all the same piece of content if your audience is only on Facebook. So discover where your customers are and post on that channel and build your following on that channel first and foremost. The next obvious question is where does content come from? Where do you find content? Does it just come from our head? Do we wake up in the morning and go, oh, that's a nice article, I'm going to write about that? Sometimes, if you are a creative writer, yes, you can simply wake in the morning and you have 1,001 ideas of what you're going to write about that day. Not every article idea that you have is a good one, unfortunately, and I think I've learned this from bittersweet experience. Similar to a lot of writers, I have 1,000 ideas a day, and I write about that, and I write about that, and I write about that. The more you write, yes, the more people see your articles, but are they reading them? Are they digesting them? Are they then going, do you know what? I'm going to convert something a bit more useful for this person. So sourcing your content normally comes from a person in the business, normally the owner or someone on their leadership team. It can also come from a company brochure. So if you've already had some printed material done, that brochure could be a good foundation for us with which to start to develop and build your website from. Sometimes it comes from industry-inspired articles or blogs, which has been rewritten into your own words. Remember, Google does not like duplicate content, so if you're copying and pasting just article after article from a blog or an industry-inspired magazine that you're reading, you're going to get noticed, and Google's going to penalise you, and it may also penalise the other website that you've copied it from. It may come from an existing website. So if you've had your website online since, let's say for instance, 2010, unfortunately your content is now a bit out of date, so in which case it's now time to modernise it, maybe get in touch with a local copywriter, maybe sit down as a team and dissect the content that you've got there. What is it talking about? What is it saying about your business? What advice is it giving to your potential customers or potential leads? And sit down and really get into the nuts and bolts of the content that's on your website at the moment. Once you have created that article and you've launched it and you're just about to hit publish on Facebook or publish on Twitter, stop. Check that article for spelling and grammatical errors. It sounds really stupid, and I really don't want to sound like the spell checking police, because believe you me, my grammar at times is far from the best. I can get it really upside down at times. So get someone, or have yourself or someone on the leadership team to check the spelling and errors, making sure that there are no grammatical errors or no spelling errors, and ensure that once an article is published, there are very few errors within that article. A spelling and grammar error can make a huge difference between that sale and someone who's going to go to your new competitor. It is all about presenting a professional image for your business, for your brand, and more importantly, to show that your customer that you are someone that they can trust. Having a spelling error on your site may make them think you're a bit sloppy. So spend some time really diving into the spellings and grammatical errors on your site. Always keep in mind that content is and always will be king. No matter what you see online, people will always say that, some people are saying that social media is king, SEO is king. Rubbish. Content will always be king, and the reason it will be is because our entire world revolves around content. So what you're putting on Facebook today, what you're writing on your blog today, what are you putting in the newsletter today, if it's text, images, audio, animation, it's content. Simple as that. You can't get away from that. It is pure content that you're putting up online that Google's going to index and go, oh, right, they belong at this position for that particular keyword. Or great, that article belongs there in Sandbox for a few weeks. We'll keep an eye on it, and then we'll decide, does it belong here or does it belong there in the search results? So constantly reminding yourself day in, day out that content is king, no matter if it's a new blog post, whether it's a new infographic. At the end of that, content is going to be there a lot longer once you published it than once you've gone. Effectively, it will still be online for people to read. So I think I've covered enough there about websites and content. It is important that you spend some time on content, spend some time looking into content. If you do have any questions, pop them in the comment feed below. I usually respond to comments whenever they come in, and straight away I get onto them. Obviously, do like our page in the top, I think on the top there, click like. If you miss any of our videos on the website Wednesday, click the video tab on the left-hand side, have a nose through. If you've got any suggestions or any questions that you have that you'd like us to do a video on, totally up for doing those as well. My name is Robert Haler. I'm the Managing Director at Boost Digital Media. If you need a website or some hosting, do give me a shout. Thanks very much. Take care. Bye-bye.